to have made a mark, I think all of us have to be extraordinary. Otherwise, surviving wouldn't be so easy, yeah?
Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello, Shipping Podcast lovers, and welcome to the 154th episode of the Shipping Podcast. I will be introducing you to Reshma Nilofer, whom I have been wanting to speak with for a long time. Reshma is a pilot in India in the Kolkata Port Trust, and that is the oldest and first major port in India. Before the conversation with her, I just want to check that you have noticed that I have finally started the newsletter. The first edition was released last Friday, so now every Friday is a Shipping Podcast Friday. Every other Friday there is a podcast episode, and the other Friday, when there is no podcast episode, there is a short newsletter in your inbox. That is, if you have subscribed to both of them. The podcast episode you subscribe in the app that you are using to listen to it, and the newsletter you subscribe on the website shippingpodcast.com. If you enjoy the podcast, you are going to love the newsletter. I promise you. Back to Reshma. She was the first female maritime river pilot, and the current Indian president awarded her with the Women Power Award in 2018. The Women Power Award is an annual award given by the Ministry of Women and Child Development of India's government to individual women or institutions that work towards the cause of women empowerment. It's presented by the President of India on International Women's Day on the 8th of March. And that has been going on since 1999, and it's handed out in New Delhi. I am convinced that after listening to Reshma, you will agree that the award was given to the right person. She is a power woman. I hope you will enjoy our conversation. Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, Lena. I'm Reshma Nilofer, and I work as a maritime pilot with the port of Kolkata. We recently had a name change. We've been christened to Shyama Prasad Mukherjee Port.
Well, that doesn't really help me. Could you say that again?
That's Shyama Prasad Mukherjee Port, named after a personality.
And where is it?
Yeah, so this is in the east of India.
Yeah.
And it's a river port. It's the first and the major river port in India, in the country.
So what is your background? How come you started to go to sea?
It's very funny, Lena, because I never intended to be here in shipping, not as a kid, even not as a teen. I started out thinking that I wanted an extraordinary and offbeat career. And on the lookout, this just came up. It was an advertisement which I happened to come across. I had no godparents in the industry to look up to and to know about what industry this is. What was I getting into? No role models really. So it just came up that the Danish shipping company Maersk Line, they were hiring people for the company. We were asked for dual competency course. So it was a completely sponsored course program. So that was an added advantage. You would have employment right after education, and the entire education was also sponsored. So that was not burdening my parents for the college. So I never looked back. I never turned back. I never thought again. I said, I'm going for this because, at that time, all we could imagine about ships was, the likes of Titanic. That was a popular movie, and that's all we had seen ever about ships. So I imagined myself on atop a great, majestic cruise ship, and I applied. So as I matured through this the program, and then eventually going on board as a seafarer, as a trainee officer, and working on the deck and the engine department. I learned about the nuances, how it gets here, how this industry is the one which moves the world, and I've been in love ever since.
So how long was that education? Or you were a trainee, or I don't know what to call it?
Yeah, we were in college for about 4 years. After that, about 2 years on board Maersk ships. I was personally on container ships. I had been on container fleet, sailing on board some of their mega containers. Yeah, and had a great experience. And, when you get on board, you start idolizing somebody. Usually it's the master, because everybody looks up to the person and he or she has the command of the vessel. So, yeah, I started out with idolizing the master, and then slowly I also noticed that the master idolizes the pilot.
Oh, I see.
So, yeah, because this is a person who comes, he or she is an external addition to the bridge team, and here they just whisk past and then take over the entire bridge with their expertise, and everybody's looking up to their advice. And obviously that must be, I thought, or so I thought, that's the pinnacle of this maritime industry job. So I said, I need to be there one day. And opportunities came by at the right time, right place, I would say. When I was at a point looking for a job where I could be there for my parents on a short call. I had my mom getting sick at a time when I was just about finishing my contract on board. And that's the time I realized, I needed to be somewhere close by, so that, I could be with them in an emergency. So when I looked again, another advertisement comes by, right time, right place, like I said. So here it was, picking up junior officers and training them to become pilots. So I thought and saw that as a shortcut of ways to become a pilot.
And when was this?
This was in 2011.
Oh, I see. So you have been a pilot for a very long time then.
No, I was on a trainee pilot position, and I trained for about 6.5 years.
Okay.
And 2018 is when I actually became a pilot. Yeah, 2 years now.
And that was one of the first female pilots in the world, I understand.
Yeah, we are a good number of pilots now. After my recent travels here and there, I have had the opportunity and a blessing to meet so many women pilots around the world. Yes, we are quite a few. Maybe very, very few river pilots. Yeah, but there are a lot of women pilots in the world. Unfortunately, in India, I'm the only one. Hopefully, I will be a start of many. Let's hope.
Yeah, I am convinced that you will be that.
Thank you.
You were also awarded by the Indian president, I understand.
That's right. Yeah. It's like it was the biggest recognition for me for the hard work that I've put in for this, for getting here. Firstly, I have to say that I had been given the opportunity, because nobody stopped me when I applied here. Nobody said, you're a woman, can you do this? Yes, of course, people had some doubts. They did ask me on my face, do you think you can do that? Can you board ships and disembark? Climbing and getting off ships in bad weather can be very tricky. Are you willing to take that risk? Are you willing to do that work? And the working hours are really odd hours around the clock, around the year. So I said, no, I'm up for it. I'm up for the challenge. I'm here for doing this. So let me try it. And only if you try, you'll know if you can do it or not. So yeah, I'm here today.
Yeah.
Been working all right.
So what is the best part of being a pilot?
Lena, this job is one where the conditions of working is different every day, every hour, every ship, the crew, the conditions, the wind, the tide, everything's different every day. Even when we get the regular ships, there are a lot of coastal vessels which are very regular here. But then It's never the same ship, it's never the same people, or it's never the same conditions, like external conditions are different. So there's no monotony. There's never any monotony here.
And what is the biggest challenge being a pilot?
You need to have patience and you need to have nerves of steel. Because I say that because when we have emergencies, when we have contingencies, these are, you already have too less time to get used to a ship and how the ship behaves. And over that, when you have an emergency or a contingency, something breaking down, this is machinery, it can happen. And when we have too little room and too much traffic, this river, where I work, it's very strong tides, we have too little room, it's a narrow channel, the depth is very less. And when you have emergency put on top of that, that's really tricky. So when you have to manage a situation like that, you really need to have nerves of steel, because your action has to be quick. You have to avoid damages, but if there's an eventual damage that's definitely going to be there, then you have to minimize it. So to think of solutions, you need to have your spirit should be out there, quick, 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 1 2 3, go like that, like clockwork.
Think on your feet.
Absolutely.
But how have you been greeted? I mean, you're a female and you come on board and there are a lot of male crew. How are you greeted then?
It's usually disbelief or surprise, because that's still the way in this part of the world. At least we don't have that many women seafarers yet as we would like. On top of that, a pilot is another rare phenomenon. So I understand their surprise and disbelief. But then as we work through the day, as the day progresses, they, accept me, and they see how I work. And usually, so far, so good. It's been going well.
I understand that recently you had an accident. Can you talk a little bit about that, maybe?
Yeah, so this was in bad weather. It was monsoon season. When the pilot boat was alongside, I was disembarking from a ship, and we had wind close to about 30 knots. It was, say, 27 or so when I was disembarking, because I had checked. I knew that the wind was pretty strong and I had made extra effort to make lee. But then conditions here is that we have wind from one side and then the swell from another, the waves. So you really cannot make a completely, there's not enough room to turn around the ship, complete 360 to make some, safe waters in the center. So it was a risk going down, and then I had to time myself. So there was a timing error from my side as I was getting down, and then I was counting. I held on to the rope ladder and I had to take counts as to how many seconds the boat comes up, and find the rhythm of the boat. When the boat comes up on the wave at the crest, that is when I need to step off, take off my hands from the ladder. So I made a mistake there. It gets difficult when there's rogue waves. So that's what happened. There was a rogue wave. There's a wave which breaks on your bow. And after that, there is a wave which is not following the rhythm. So that's when the boat dipped and then I fell on the boat. I had some injuries. There's a few pains are still there, even months later. This happened in August 20th, on 20th of August. But
you broke some bones in your body.
Yeah, there was a impact fracture, which was a hairline crack on my close to my ball joint on my right arm. And then I'm a right-hander, so I was really worried at that time. There was some spinal disc compression too. Fortunately, there was no spinal fracture. So all I needed to do was, take some beauty sleep, beauty rest. And here I am. I'm back at work, working as usual. But then the weather has been a little calmer in the winter season. Now it's winter here.
Mm.
So I have some calmer weather to heal back up and go. Yeah.
So is there a way to avoid accidents like that?
See, there are ways to avoid accidents. You have man ropes to hold. It's just that you need to get a knack of doing this. And I don't know if we're still thinking about how we can minimize these accidents and how we can, maybe train our people. So I think this is going to take years to figure out,
Mm.
because this is a profession which is, hundreds of years old, and people have done it this way for so many centuries, and still we are yet to find proper solutions. These are difficult things to, because each pilot has their own way of embarking and disembarking. They are comfortable with the man rope. Like I was not comfortable with holding the man ropes, and there are a group of pilots who think so, like me, and there's a lot who they rely on the man ropes. So there are a lot of occupational hazards. So we need to really put our heads to it as a collective thing and get out with some solutions.
Mm. So you've been around for a while. What are the biggest changes that you have seen in the maritime industry? I mean, in your job and so on.
In my job, we are more and more now moving to technological improvements. Earlier it was only navigation by sight, and then comes, transits and lights and various other things to help us with it. And with that, we've also reduced our safety margins. As and when we've upgraded to technological improvements, our safety margins keep coming down. So, it's more a precise job today. You need to be absolutely precise, absolutely sure of what you're doing and what's going to be the end result. But yeah, more technologically inclined nowadays. And we're getting to top-notch technologies in the other countries. I have experienced pilotage in Australia last year. I had the fortune of attending the two pilotage movements over there, and yeah, it was absolutely breathtaking, seriously.
So, how do you see the future then? I mean, what do you think will happen in the future?
I think shipping as an industry itself is moving towards, human beings are going to become machinery operators, remote operators more likely. So, yeah, we are getting there. We are moving towards remote operations and electronics, more of electronics. And, like I said, everything's remote. There's going to be lesser and lesser people. But then I am also not a believer that, human beings are going to be replaced. I don't think human beings are or our sixth sense is going to be ever replaced by any machinery, even if it's artificial intelligence and or anything else. So we're all going to be relying more upon artificial intelligence and remote operations and things like that. But we're still going to be there to operate. Maybe the numbers will go down, but yeah.
I think you're right. I think it's going to be a support to us. All the new technical developments will be a
support and also big headaches.
Yeah.
Because as we reduce and reduce and reduce our manpower everywhere, there's also a very forgotten side of, the human element, the mental state of people. That's always been and continues to be a very, very forgotten topic of discussion today. IMO had this, mental health for seafarers as their theme. But then I see that there's much more opportunities for development and improvement in this particular section. And now the pandemic has shown us what grit and what determination our seafarers have shown through the pandemic. And still, we people who are sitting ashore, we are yet to recognize them as key workers in many countries. And even if they did get the seafarers a key workers tag, we still don't understand their pain. There's still a lot of trouble with crew change. Till date, till now, there is millions of seafarers are out there and wishing to be with their family in a time of difficulty now.
I totally agree with you. And it also became apparent that that we haven't really risen the profile of the maritime industry before, because hardly anyone knew about all the hard work that the seafarers are actually doing.
Yeah. No offense to the medical professionals and the sanitization workers and all of the other key workers, but then we are not giving the importance which the seafarers and the maritime industry as a whole, the supply chain industry, the whole of logistics and supply chain, shipping, everything all told, the maritime industry has not been given its due credit.
No.
And I thought that the pandemic situation had improved situations. It is better than before, definitely. But then we still need to do a lot.
Yeah. We are, I mean, in a way, doing things harder for ourselves because we're only delivering and delivering and delivering. So
Yes.
there hasn't been any broken logistical chain, as you say. And then people haven't realized the hard work that has been done to actually keep the society moving.
Yeah. See, we are a very less spoken about industry as a whole. So as long as the awareness doesn't go out, we are going to be forgotten key workers.
I agree. And that is why I started my podcast.
Yes. It's an amazing effort, Lena.
Thank you.
The numbers are just absolutely, awesome, and really how far you've come. That's really something to hear.
Thank you. How do you think that our industry could become more visible to the general public? How can we improve our profile to them?
We need to be putting out our image to the common man, and reach out using social media or the public, the TV and the common media, which is out there, and telling people, enough with just movies and movies and movies. Now it's time for, maybe have them on the labels. When you get an end product, I think there should be a tribute to the people who are getting the product from somewhere, from point A in some other part of the world, to the person, to the consumer. I think the consumer needs to read them on the labels, even.
I had that idea a couple of weeks
Mhm.
back. We are like-minded. I thought about
Yeah, think
stickers.
alike.
Maybe there should be a sticker put on the thing
Exactly.
that you are sending from where it's being produced, so that
Yes.
the end user can see this was delivered by seafarers.
Yes. And, these many, not just the seafarers, these many departments of the maritime industry has been involved in bringing this little thing to you
Hmm.
from this country. Everything, we get everything now everywhere. How many restaurants do we step in, and each one is a different cuisine, right? So yeah, absolutely, just anything you touch, it's from somewhere else.
So, how has the pandemic influenced you as a person? How have you been experiencing this time?
Oh, it's been a very, very difficult time, just like many others. Initially, I had traveled to Sri Lanka for a Vista program, and I was speaking there. This was early March, when there were no patients in my country and Sri Lanka. So the travel went well. But then when I got back, there were these first COVID suspects. And I unfortunately became one when I had a simple allergy and then some cough and things like this. So I was in quarantine. I was taken off for a test. And, I live alone all by myself. So it was difficult to cope up with the new changes, just crushing in on you, and, preparing for the lockdown phase. Because when you're alone, you are dependent on other things, like, you would go out, get the groceries and things like that. And then when you're out at work, the next day is a lockdown. And then when you come back home, there's not enough essentials. What do you do? So, and then the initial fear that everybody had, and then you couldn't source out all your things. So it was difficult, but then fortunately I had some Vista sisters also coming out and helping me out with my essential supplies. And then later on, some of my colleagues, and then the port, everybody helped me out. with that initial hiccup. And then later on, working through the pandemic was itself very scary. I felt I was the most fearful in my life during this phase. There hasn't been anything else which I was so scared of. Maybe ghosts. But then this was next to ghosts. So, we had to still go work. And the fear was not for myself, the fear for not infecting others whom I'm working with. Because you see, Lena, we are working from ashore. So on a call, I have help. My employer, the port, the government takes care of me. All I need to do is make a phone call and say I have symptoms, and then I'm taken in. I had COVID also. Meanwhile, after the fall, and then when I was getting treated, I got the contracted the COVID from my physiotherapist. But then I had help at hand. My parents were here, and I had the Port Trust Hospital. Everybody helped me out. But then, what if I was a silent carrier and then asymptomatic, and I got on board and gave it to others? Because they who are on board will not be even accepted if they had one person infected. We did not know where they could get their medical help. All you have is an oxygen cylinder on board. You do not have enough means to treat yourself, or in close proximity, they would, if one person got it on board, the entire crew faces a risk. So I was very scared and very, very careful how I mixed with people, and how to keep my distance and things like that. Yeah, fear was one of the biggest things I had faced. But then perseverance and learning from people who've done a great job has actually shown me and taught me humility. Humility for the nature, humility for the other human beings around us. The kind of difficulties people have faced. We are still way better off compared to millions and millions of people.
Oh, yes, definitely. Who do you think I should interview the next? Who would you be interested in listening to?
I recently had another podcast with somebody by the name of Abhijit Balakrishnan. So he himself is a podcaster like you, and he gives his respect and hello to you too, because I had discussed with him that I was going to talk to you later on. So he says hello. And, out of many people who have recently had a word with and had discussions with, here's a man who is absolutely in 2050 when it comes to gender inclusion and diversity. Because everywhere I speak about gender inclusion and diversity, the room is half full, if not completely full, with women.
Yeah.
There's hardly maybe a head or two somewhere peppered around men who are listening or speaking. Hardly ever. And then, of course, we are calling down manels because there's too many manels happening around the world. So here's one man who was way ahead of even my ideas and what I have faced and what solutions I'm giving. And this man seemed to be having very, very practical solutions for our problems. That means that here's a person putting himself in our shoes, thinking of solutions, and being a person who's way ahead of time.
I would be very happy to speak to him.
Yeah, I will let him know. He was actually wanting to talk to you anyway, so I will let him know, and I'll pass on his contacts to you.
Thank you. Because I think that is actually one of our own problems, that we are always speaking to women about diversity, which is like preaching to the choir.
Exactly.
Everyone in that room knows what you're going to say and agrees with you.
Almost.
And almost, yeah. But yeah. I agree, we need to speak to the people who can change things.
Yes.
And also with men who may be
our allies.
Yeah, we need to find the allies and move forward with them.
Exactly.
because that is the only way to change things.
And also, I wouldn't agree with you on that's the only way to change, because I also think that, as and when women climb up to these positions of, decision making roles, you see a big, big difference. Now when you have Gillian Carson at the steering helm of events for Nautical Institute, you see there's been such a big difference she's been making. That's because she has been given that position where she can make decisions. And it goes the same way for all the women who are CEOs today. Sanjam Gupta here, and so many others who are taking up the helm, at the center of the helm. So these are the women who are making a difference, and I think we need more of them. For that, we need to empower our women who are just those worker bees. Find them out, the ones with the leadership qualities and the qualities to become a leader, and then push them to become leaders.
What do you think about leadership education? I mean, I think about that there may be a lack of education for leadership in our industry when it comes to, I haven't been to sea, so I wouldn't really be the one saying this, but maybe when you're training to become a master mariner, more leadership inclusion in that education might help.
Yeah, that is a definitely good option to teach leadership. But I think when you have years at sea, the women, they get the leadership training at work. When they work, when they have a crew to instruct as chief officers, as a third mate, as a second mate, they slowly mature up the ranks, and they get the taste of the sea salt that they have to become to take up the master's command. So traditionally, it's been like that.
I was thinking about the men. Maybe they should need some extra leadership education.
Exactly the point where I'm getting to. To take up the commands of a woman is still a big, big taboo in many parts of the world. Nobody wants to take instructions from a bossy woman, because moment you give an instruction, it's not an instruction from a boss anymore. It's a bossy woman. So you start putting tags. So, consciously or unconsciously, we have plenty biases. And Lena, you won't believe, you and I still have some biases left. And when we have it, the men have much more, many more biases. For that, we really need courses. I think we need something like a gender sensitivity course, which has to be made mandatory. And I'm also currently looking at what the solutions could be, so that maybe in future I could maybe take up the course or impart it to others.
Yeah, you have so much to share with others. So you have seen a lot and you have experienced a lot. Yeah.
Still studying about what could the solutions be. Yeah. Someday maybe.
We are all studying what the solution can be, but trying to influence trying to influence where you can influence. I mean, one of my things is the podcast. I have
Absolutely.
half my guests are females, and I don't really see that anywhere else in the industry that media outlet is giving the platform to women.
Yeah, for the voices to be heard.
So that is also an inspiration for me to try and give so much more space to the women who has got so many interesting things to share.
Yeah, that's right. And thanks for doing this, Lena. I know you've been at it for many years, and it takes a lot of effort.
It really does. Thank you very much. You said that you didn't have any role model growing up, but do you feel like a role model now yourself?
As we matured in this profession, whether we knew it or consciously or unconsciously, we had started mentoring other women who were other girls who are just getting in, the new girls, the newbies. So I think I have been given that position, pushed to the position of being a role model. And yes, if somebody today started out as a trainee pilot, I think I will definitely be a role model for that person. And I'd be really glad to be of some help, if not, pave the entire way for that person to have a better entry than me. So, yes, a role model, but then uh, instead of role model, I would be better at calling myself a mentor.
That's your personality. I can see that and I can feel that. That's okay with me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Reshma, for taking the time to speak to me.
No, it's my pleasure. The pleasure's all mine, Lena. Thank you for having me. I'll put in some extra time to listen to all those excellent people you have on your list of podcasts.
And keep up the good job and be that role model that I actually think that you are. Thank you, Reshma. I'm happy to hear that you feel better after your accident and that you are back at work. Before I leave you, I want to repeat the request to seafarers that have been stuck on board their ships due to the COVID situation. I want to put together an episode with the voices from those of you who are the heroes at sea and has endured for such a long time. Please email me at hello@shippingpodcast.com if you're willing to speak up for the community of seafarers. I can make sure that no one recognizes your voice if that is what's holding you back. So, until the next time, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.